It's your host, Devin Johnson, aka Da Vinci's, back with another episode of Up and Coming. And I got a really special guest today, my friend, Ashley Flete.
At one thing, but that doesn't mean that you are a failure. What you did or what you were working on is what failed, but you didn't. So just find a different route.
What's going on, girl?
Hey, Devin, how are you? Good to be here. So excited. And, shout out to you for all that you have been doing, rooting for you, of course.
I'm rooting for you too. I wish I could actually play the air horns. I don't know if they can hear that. I don't even know if you can hear it. I just hit the air horns on my thing. So maybe they heard it, maybe they didn't, but whatever. But it's so good to talk to you. I know you're busy, I'm busy, but there's occasions we never lose contact with each other.
That is so true. It's like when we do talk, it's like time hasn't passed by.
Since we last talked, which was years ago, you got to fill me in too. What have you been doing so far?
Honestly, I've been doing a little bit of everything. As you know, I left Augusta and took a job in Tallahassee. And so, it was an interesting journey transition. I was an anchor there. And then, of course, things happen. Life happens. You kind of have to take different paths. And so I was lashing. I'm a lash tech. I was lashing on the side. And I kind of just made my hobby my main thing after, losing my job. And so I just picked it up from there and realized, the importance of a lot of things and kind of just wishing that, kind of like how they say, if I knew then what I know now, things would be so different.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you mean about that. Can you kind of break down, you don't have to go in super detail, but more so as in give us a timeline? Because for folks that don't know who is watching this and watch this in YouTube, we actually worked together at WJBF, and you pushed me, I pushed you, and we were good friends. And then you went on to the Black News Channel and became an anchor there. And then after that, I didn't know what you were doing after that.
Right. Yeah. So I, lost my job at the news channel. Things kind of went a little sour, I guess you can say. I had to file a lawsuit, but it was public. So, that's on the interwebs if anybody's interested.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
But, so that was definitely a journey. I decided to, stand up for myself and kind of, know my worth kind of thing. And so it changed my trajectory and my path, and that's totally okay. I ended up, like I said, becoming a lash artist full time. I first opened up a shop with what I call her as my lash mom. We opened up a shop and kind of, got things going. And I really learned a lot under her on how to run a business, kind of things to keep in mind, especially with my industry. We're dealing with people's faces, we're getting really close and personal. So just kind of the things you have to keep in mind in that aspect. And then from there, I was able to actually, in December that just passed, I was able to open up my own beauty bar. And so now I have my own beauty bar. I have 3 other ladies in there with me, 2 of them who do lashes as well, and then another one who does hair. So it's kind of just a nice little space to be in and to see all this growth, but I would be lying if I said that it was easy.
How did you get into lashing?
To believe it or not, I actually got my lashes done while I was in Augusta. And so after getting them done, I had realized it made my makeup process, it killed 20 minutes off my time. And in news that matters. In news, every minute is do or die.
What? I had pre-roll ties in my drawer.
I remember. So yeah. And so so that happened, and I was like, all right, well, this is interesting. I got more information about it, kind of started, going through the rabbit hole, as you would say, and it just piqued my interest. And I was like, well, if this is how it made me feel, then I could give that feeling to somebody else. And so it was just a little hobby, something I was doing on the side to make a little extra money. And when I lost my job, I just picked it up, and now it's what's been keeping me through for the last year and a half or 2 years at this point.
Were you doing that? Were you lashing at the Black News Channel, or were you lashing in Augusta?
I was lashing here in Tallahassee,
Okay.
just a little after. So when I got here, I actually, I got here in July of 2020, I want to say.
Mhm.
And in November of 2020 is when I got my certification in the lash course.
What's the most interesting thing, or like the thing that you're like, oh my God, I should have done this a long time ago?
That's an interesting question. I think a lot of things the fact that in entrepreneurship, like the one big lesson I've learned, and it's going to always be a thing, is that in order to make money, you have to spend money. So that I don't necessarily say like spend money, I say invest money, because that money that you invest, comes back around. So whether it be marketing, whether it be out here, going to pop-up shops and events and, giving that face-to-face aspect, there's just a lot of different things that you have to consider, and you are your own boss. So you really have to be like, hold yourself accountable. You have to be able to like show up every time for yourself or for your business, and, show up at 110%.
It's not a 9 to 5. It's literally a 24/8. Like I literally quit a 9 to 5 to work every day, every hour.
I had to, just be able to be a sponge and kind of just learn from people, and really find people who were kind of doing the things that I were doing, or find people who I was interested in, and kind of see how they functioned and how they, kind of some of the things that they put in place to kind of get them where they are. Fun fact, like while I was actually working at the Black News Channel, I used to listen to Steve Harvey in the mornings while I was, doing my makeup. And he was a big like push factor, or one thing that kept me grounded in the process of the transition from anchoring or just news in general to entrepreneurship, because you really have to keep yourself motivated. You really have to like be mindful of the stuff that you listen to, the stuff that you're around, the stuff that you watch, because, they say that your net worth is your network. So,
ooh, I didn't hear that. I guess I'm just now getting into, because me, I don't really like, I didn't like networking. I just like you were like, are you gonna go to NABJ, or are you gonna go to this conference? I was like, you know me. I like, nah, if I can just work and just train myself, then I'm gonna do it. Now I'm in a space where I am networking. So I totally agree with you. I network literally every day.
I'm so proud of you, Devin, because before you were like, why would I do that?
You know me. If anybody would tell, like, I get on this platform and I complain. I will not complain, but I just tell people like, you don't make any money in the news. Like, I literally just quit my job. I do this, like, but I just like, and I'm telling these people this story, and they're like, wow, I was like, if there's one person that knows me the best way, it would be you.
Right. Listen, people literally like their mouths drop when when everything happened, I was making more money lashing than I was in news. Like my salary was 42.50, like 42. Like what is that? It's people
nothing to live on.
Yeah, like, and not only that, but you have to think about, you have to provide your own clothes. For us, we have makeup and hair. Like, you guys can get a haircut, and that's no problem.
You got to have suits and suits and haircuts, and then don't forget you got to have the cost of living and stuff like that. And then you had to
away from your family.
Well, I had my family, but for you, I was living with my parents, but you had to be all the way from Miami, Florida.
Yes. Yeah. I went from, state to state. And the thing is, that's part of the business. That's part of the journey. You have to pay your dues. You have to start small. But in reality, sometimes, it's a very taxing industry. And it was kind of hard going from news, transitioning out of news, because it was all I knew. And also just, you get so wrapped up, involved into it, like you're telling the stories of the voiceless, as we used to say. And at some point you kind of have to like remember that you're human, that what you're taking in every day is not normal. Like, how do you keep going every day and repeat the same thing? Because as I would tell people, you guys watch the news maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes there, but we had to report it 5, 6, 7 again the next morning, maybe for the next week, depending on what's happening.
Doing a follow-up on it, making sure that you're beating your competition out, no lunch break. Like we actually live it. And then we have to go back. Not only that we're doing that, we actually had to watch our competition and see how they told their story, so the next time we could tell the story differently.
Right. And make sure that you're always staying abrupt and up to date, and know the details and have the contacts. And it's a lot to manage, but I will say that I'm very thankful for it, because it prepared me for where I'm going, where I am today. I will tell you that just in news, communication is key. Like, that's what spins the wheel. So in the world, communication is something that's hard for some people. And I feel that because of my experience through news, I can communicate with people. Obviously we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes sometimes. We have to sit back and realize, but for the most part, because of the position that I've been in as a reporter, as an anchor doing interviews, I know how to communicate with people. And that's like a skill set for me. That's something I'm proud of. That's something when, I go and speak and talk to people, that's something I'm going to mention.
Do you still, so you say, I have seen you've done like motivational speaking, like you've got a long list. Like when I tell you are, people will tell me like, you literally just jumped out in a whim and just followed your dream. I'm like, yeah, I did that. I encourage everybody to do that once. After that, figure it out. But you are the poster child of setting a goal and achieving that goal and grinding to that goal. When you go and talk to like, people that's maybe our age, younger and whatever, what are some of the things that you're telling them to, kind of inspire their dreams and goals? Maybe they want to report or something. I don't know.
I'm so glad you asked that question, and thank you so much, because that means a lot, especially coming from someone who you were a part of my journey at some point, and of course still are. But man, I think back to the things that I think back to when I was in those seats, or when I was in that moment, where you're starting your first job or graduating, whatever, and I'm just like, knowing what I know now, like, what would I have told myself then? Would it have been, hey, make sure you have a plan B or a trade skill, something, start building your own brand on the side, whether that be getting on YouTube and making some videos, or whatever it is, figure it out and what that looks like, and make sure that it's your like niche, so that if anything, it can always be your like backup plan. Right. But also just telling them about financial literacy. They say that we don't do better because we don't know better. And so, unfortunately, I had to max out a credit card and forgot to pay a bill, got hit with the late fee and all that. And, unfortunately, you learn through your mistakes. But yeah. I always think that if I could share something with someone that can either, open up a different like window in their head, like, hey, think about it this way, perspective, I should say, why not? Like, that's kind of giving them the blueprint. And even for me, now that I'm older, when someone gives me a piece of advice, I actually take a second to sit back and listen and kind of ponder on it. I feel like growing up when you're a teenager, and as people would say, smelling yourself, people give you advice and you think you know everything, and you don't. Like, you don't even, you're still young, you're growing, you're experiencing. And so just realizing that, hey, when someone has a piece of advice, when someone takes time out of their day to share something with you and say, hey, I'm going to allow you to do whatever you want to do, but here's my perspective. I think it should work, or I think it's going to go this way, and this is why, because I've experienced something similar, then maybe you actually should take the second to sit down and listen. You might walk away with something that you didn't even know you needed. And especially I feel like, there's like a disconnect almost with this generation, and it's kind of hard to
The newer generation?
Yeah.
I will agree with you on that. There's one thing that I will say about the newer generation that I can connect with. They don't take shit from anybody.
I was gonna say it, but I didn't know if I could say it.
No, you can say no. This is a safe space, dude. This is just real talk right here. They don't take shit from anybody. If you're not respecting their time, you're not respecting them, you're not respecting their energy, or you're not respecting somebody else, they're gonna stick up and say something about it. And our generation is like, if you're sick, go back. You still got to get up and go to work, got to go to school, take it. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, the new generation, if it's wrong, is wrong. And that's what I'm starting to connect with them. And I'm doing that. I didn't do that with my old job. That's the one thing that I regret not doing. It kind of made me feel like a failure after I quit. But at this new job that I'm working at SC State University, nah, I'm the new generation. I'm them. I stand up for what I believe in.
Yeah, and I could not agree with you more. And I honestly round of applause to the generation in that aspect, because it's needed. It is needed. It is, growing up, your parents sometimes don't listen to you because you're a child, or they see you in a child's place. But these kids, they're growing up. They have a voice. They want to be heard, and they're going to let you know, like, no, I'm going to use this and you're going to hear me whether you like it or not. And it's bold, it's brave, it's commendable. And it almost kind of leaves you in a space of like, I'm so interested for what's to come if they continue to stay on this bold and braveness, and we're not taking no mess path.
So I know we talked about journalism. We're past that chapter. That chapter is closed. Do you still consider yourself a journalist?
Oh, yes. I will always be a journalist. Oh, listen, you cannot take that away from me. I don't care I don't care. I've been in the industry. I spent years in the industry. I, experienced different newsrooms. I told different stories. I connected with, you cannot take that away from me. It is priceless. And unless you've been through it, you don't know. Like, it's a different world. Of course, everyone says that about the industry, but I do want people to understand that when it comes to news, we had to be well-versed in everything. One day you were a veterinarian, one day you were a doctor, the next day you're at a funeral home. Like, it's just
next thing you're a technician.
Literally,
one day you're a firefighter. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man.
The next day you're driving, doing a ride by with a car, and it's just like, all right, well, this is the day's worth of work.
Yeah, but you're getting paid a little bit, and I'm glad that you said that, because that's one thing that your job shouldn't take away from you, that you are still a journalist, still to this day. We also talked about lashing. Where's your lashing company at? Where's your business at?
Tallahassee, Florida. That's where I have it. And it's crazy because I actually went to school at FAMU. So go Rattlers. I'm always going to throw that in there, of course. But yeah, it's here. And, it's a college town. So it's very interesting to grow my business in this kind of
college
space.
Town.
Yeah.
What's the name of your business?
Wig Fairy lashes.
Do you have a particular name, or why? Like, what's the origin of that name?
I just kind of wanted something that was like, interesting. And honestly, I think the fairy part was inspired by like Tinkerbell. I'm a Disney fan. I have a daughter, so of course, like, that's a thing. And I've thought about it and it just stuck with me. And when it stuck, I was like, well, that's what I'm gonna go with, Wig Fairy.
So make sure you guys check her out. Go to Tallahassee. When you need to go to Tallahassee, you can get your eyelashes done. You need to get some makeup done. You got to get your hair done. That's the spot you need to go to. Yeah. So I got more questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Let's go. Tell me, are you still doing I'll move that on for later. How about this one? You're an author now.
Yeah.
You write books. Like, how did you get into writing books? And I know you've written books for other people? Like, I see that you about to pull a book out. You about to pull your book? Are you about to pull your book out?
This is actually the draft of my book.
Okay.
So these are just some of the pages.
What? Okay. What's the book called?
So it's actually called Pieces of Me. And
okay.
So in the midst of while everything was happening with my job, I actually started writing it at that time because I was in a dark place. And so, like I said, I was listening to like Steve Harvey and really motivational videos in the morning. And at one point, the journalist in me came out, but in a different way, in a way where I didn't have to tell painful stories, in a way where I realized that I can take my experiences and hopefully turn them into like a lesson for someone else. So for example, I talked about climbing Mount Fuji. And so my book is kind of like a workbook. It's interactive where I'll give you a prompt, I'll give you quotes, and you'll have a reflection piece, whether that's, to write a couple things down or sit in front of a mirror for a second and look at yourself. It really gets you to work on yourself. But I wrote about, climbing Mount Fuji in Japan, and the title for that was Climb and Maintain. And just how I had to climb and maintain through that mountain, it's the same thing through life. Obstacles happen, stuff is thrown your way, unexpected things happen. We go through loss, we experience highs, the lows, and all it is you're climbing and you're maintaining. You accomplish one goal, you climb that, you stay there, and then at some point you're like, what's my next goal?
Yeah.
You keep going. So it's kind of just pieces of me. I'm sharing pieces of my life, certain things that I experienced that now that I'm in the space that I'm in, I can look back and get the lesson out of it. Like, wow, that's what that was for.
In your book, I know you probably don't give too much detail, but do you give a little bit of detail about why you was in a dark space? Because everybody that I've met has either quit the business or saying like stay away from the business or do something else. They always say is like, I was in a dark place, but they really, really don't get into the nitty gritty. Like, do you explain that into your book of like what kind of where you were at and how you were feeling every day?
I try to be in some pages. I try to be as transparent as possible, because of the format of how I wanted the book. I didn't really go into like super full detail of it because I wanted it to be more of something that is like, hey, this is what happened. This is a lesson, and this is the blessing that came from it. But at some pages, I do talk about how, things can get so heavy and we can tend to be in our heads and we don't tend to give ourselves enough grace, and just realizing that it's hard and we have to put on this, facade of like, I'm here, I'm showing up every day, everything is great. And behind the scenes, it's like I'm crumbling, I'm falling, I'm tumbling. At some point in my book, I think I do mention that I kind of suffered with depression after losing my job in news because it happened so quick. I didn't know what was next. I had a daughter to, of course, feed and maintain. And so it's a beautiful thing now to kind of see it be birthed from a dark place, but knowing that it's going to be like a gesture of light for other people.
I can't wait to read that. I don't like reading. That was strange because I'm a journalist and I'm supposed to read and I don't like reading, but I would love to read your book. I would definitely love to read your book. I can't. When does it come out? When do you have it? When is it
pretty soon? I am now in the final stages of the design. So after that is just, coming out with the ebook and it'll be accessible to everyone. I do have something up my sleeve for it. So, it's actually with Ashley Doss, if you remember her.
I remember Ashley Doss.
Rattlers link up and you got to circle back around with your people. So I'm actually really excited for what's to come with the book and just, the doors that's going to open, but also the connection it's going to help make with people. Because I will say one thing, sometimes when I share or be a little bit more vulnerable on Instagram, I'll have people who, will message me and DM me and say, hey, like, I needed that. Thanks for sharing that. Like, hey, thanks for being so open. Like, I've had people come and ask me questions at the craziest times of their lives when they're going through things. And that, to me, like, that's an honor. Like,
you're the best person.
me through a
You're
screen.
the best person to talk to you.
Thank you.
I swear to God, you would literally tell me things to motivate me. And yes, I would run through the wall for Miss Kathy. I still will, but at that time, I wasn't hearing anything that you were saying. I was taking it but I was like, doing my own thing.
With a grain of salt.
With a grain of salt. I was doing it in Colombia too. And I had like other reporters, like, remember Sydney from, she chewed me out because I just they weren't respecting my time. Same stuff that you were telling me, she was telling me as well. And now it's like but you are the best person to talk to about that type of stuff. Now, everything you were telling me, it's actually coming back now. It's like, and I'm doing it with my new job and freelancing job as well. So I can see people hitting you up at these random times and DMing you because ironically, I'm telling you, you're a really good person to talk to.
Listen, I've been through things, I've experienced a lot. My parents are Dominican. I, in the summer, would like go live on a farm, go, work with pigs and goats. Like, I'm really well diversed. And I just don't feel the need to judge anyone. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but like, you just never know. I always shed light on this because it's a topic that needs to be discussed. But I had a cousin who committed suicide while I was in high school. And that, at that moment, I always say, like, I always wondered, like, what if I would have reached out, or what if we could have talked over Facebook, because he, lived in Dominican Republic. But that moment to me really changed a lot, in the sense of, you never know what simple interaction that you can have with someone, how it can change their day. Like, or just, hey, hello, how you do? Like, just acknowledging someone. You never know how that can change their day, their trajectory. Like, it's just something about it. We're all human beings. And that's what makes the world go round, is the connection, is the communication, is the contact. Like, think about it. When COVID happened, everybody was like, what is this? This is not normal. Like, what are we doing? I need to go see somebody. Like, I need to go hang out and be with my friends. This is not fun.
We still are, but we went balls to the wall. I think that was the non-human contact. I think that's what it was. We were just acting insane. I think that's what it was. Are you still doing like credit, like financial stuff? Are you still doing that? I tell you, I mean, you're like multi-skilled journalist. You're like a multi-skilled person.
Listen,
like, how did you go ahead?
In this process, the one thing I've learned, and let me tell you, I'm still fairly like young in this journey. I still have so much to learn, so much to put in place. But the one thing I can say is that what I have learned, and the investment I have made to go to certain places, read certain books, listen to certain podcasts, it's a journey. And it's just like, in order, you got to have multiple streams of income. Like, that's how these millionaires are rich. Whereas, we middle class, or, those who aren't well-versed in the knowledge of financial literacy and credit, we think of debt as a bad thing. Where millionaires, the rich people, they take debt on, and they're like, okay, I will use these $50,000 to go purchase this lot. I will go build a home. And then they put the home on the market. They get, like, who knows, double, twice, triple for what they paid for. They pay off that debt. And it's like, okay, that's $50,000 gone, but I'm still making money off of what comes from this house that I built on this lot.
I'm trying to get to that mindset, because like, I'm building this like content creator studio / setup and whatnot. I'm like, there goes $200. There goes $200. But at the same time, it's like, it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back.
Imagine if one day you end up having your own building, where you have your own, you create a space for other content creators to come and do what you do. Like, it literally just goes, you thinking outside the box, beyond, like, what's beyond the thing that's in front of you. I do like to think that I'm just like a think tank of ideas. I'm
Mhm.
a very creative person. I know you know that because I used to
I
try stuff all the time.
yeah. Yeah. You're still trying. You still. I'm like, I get on Facebook, I get on social. Like, she's doing this.
Yeah.
She got so many jobs, but you gotta have more. You gotta have multiple sources of income.
Yeah, you really do. And right now everything is so expensive. Like
Ooh.
people literally have 9 to 5s, a side income, and something else, and are still trying to make ends meet. And I have a daughter, so growing up, my mother, my parents would say credit, credit, credit. Okay, but what about credit? How do I keep it, high? What do I not do? Oh, you should only purchase groceries, gas, and pay for certain bills on your credit card, and then just pay it off as you go, roll it over, whatever it's you don't learn that until you mess up and you're like, okay, how do I fix this? Now you have to take 10 steps back to go 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I am not perfect at, obviously, but I'm learning how to do better moving forward. So I'm trying to erase the habits and the things from the past and do better. And I think that in growing up, and especially in having a kid, you have to unlearn a lot of the things that you know from the time that you grew up, because it sometimes doesn't translate to this new wave, I guess you could say.
Do you I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. I mean, I know you're doing this, I know you're doing that, I know you got your hands on everything. Is there, like, were you trying to be like, are you trying to be like a multimillionaire, a billionaire? Like, what are you like? Are you just trying to have your hand on like one thing? Are you trying to figure out your niche? What is it that you are trying to, essentially see yourself being in the next month to 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Honestly, the sky's the limit. I would be lying to you if I said I didn't want to be like Oprah.
Okay.
But really, I just want to reach my full potential. And I know that potential is very bright. Now, it's just like you said, finding myself. In the process of finding myself, I am writing my storyline. So when I'm at the age to be an Oprah and a Gail and anyone else in that same line, I have my story to tell. Oprah has a crazy story to tell that she shares on how she got to where she's at today and who she is today. Same with Gail, same with, Taraji P. Henson, all these amazing people who are now what they are. They started from the bottom. They had to go through the trenches. That's the one common thing that I've realized when I've listened to podcasts, videos, when I've gone to speaking events and heard other people. They have paid their dues. They have gone through homelessness and not knowing, if they had a food the next day. Everybody has to go through it. So when I'm going through those things, I'm like, you know what? This is part of the process. It sucks. It's not the best place to be in. It's going to test you. You're going to have to try, push, and sometimes even beg yourself to just go on through the day. But there's another day. Like the sun himself doesn't start at the brightest. He gets bright throughout the day, and then the moon comes and he takes his rest. Same thing.
You read affirmations every day, don't you? You read quotes, don't you? You be just dropping gems.
Yeah, I mean, I have sticky notes everywhere. I actually used to have sticky notes put like at my apartment in Augusta because you need the motivation sometimes. I was by myself. My parents were in Florida. I was in Georgia. I just had a baby. I was doing my first job out of college. So much was going on. And I got to a point where I was like, nope, I'm going to tell myself better. I'm going to tell myself something different, because I realized that what you have in your mind is what you feed yourself, is what you tell yourself. So if I'm speaking to myself negatively, that's the outcome I'm going to get. Now, I will say that at some point I read a book called The 4 Agreements. I have it somewhere. but but I read that book, and it talks about be careful with your words, because there's a thing like black magic, like
Mhm.
speaking dark things, like nothing is going to grow, nothing grows in that. And so just being mindful of that, and realizing that certain things that people do, you can't take it personal, because
Mhm.
you're just the mirror and they're seeing their reflection, and that's what they're reacting to. And just learning that, mastering your character, mastering the ability to stay in a space where nobody can make you come outside that character is work.
Well, as we start to wrap up the time, I do appreciate you spending the last almost 40 minutes with me and the guest that's in here. A lot of people wanted to see you.
Hey.
A lot of people wanted to see you. Um, but what can we expect next? What can we expect next from Ashley?
I just came back from Miami.
Mhm.
So there's that. There's works of Miami. But right now I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. Like I said, my book is coming out. I will be traveling to a conference in California, so that will be exciting. I'm figuring it out as I go. I really think that we get so caught up into the overnight success that we forget to realize that things take time. And if somebody doesn't have it all together at the moment, that's okay. I'm 26 years old. Like, Tyler Perry and Steve Harvey, then all these people did not, become to the level that they're at until their 30s. Like,
Mhm.
it's okay. We have time. And, if I fumble and fall, then that's okay. I can get back up and just find a route to choose. But definitely, working on the book and just continuing to network and put myself out there and put my names in rooms and in places, before my feet are even in them. Because that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
You know, in the news business, our last question. You know what our last question and always is it?
Remind me.
Is there anything else you want to add that I'm failing to ask you?
Oh
But
man, it feels so different to be the one that, like, you gotta ask me that question.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
not.
like, you know this question. You know this question. Do you want to add that I'm feeling? Do you want to add anything else that I'm feeling to ask you? But I feel like the journalists in us,
Mhm.
I want to go deeper in that question. So, is there anything? Is there a word of advice that you want to give people who may be struggling to figure it out or just have that job and they just have to just put on their face to get to work and just feel like they're just not enjoying their life and not doing what they want to do? Is there
Mhm.
any word of advice to, finally just be like, get to the point where they're happy
Mhm.
and are happy what they're doing?
I mean, definitely you have to look at what's stopping you. Like, is the predicament that you're in really worth it? I think that if there was any words of advice, like one thing I told, when I spoke to some of the kids at a FAMU, is that if I knew what I know now, like back then, I probably would have taken an extra semester and just done an internship.
Mhm.
I did that, but maybe just an extra semester to really prepare myself, do that internship, build the brand or whatever the case is. We can slow down. We don't have to have it all together. I think the actual beauty of being able to, enjoy the high moment is looking back and realizing, like, dang, I really like built, like, fought this beast and climbed this mountain, and I got the trophy now to prove it. I always tell people to be easy on themselves, give yourself grace. The world is already such a harsh place, and we deal with so much, and we take in so much things that I think have desensitized us, dehumanized us, that we forget that compassion and kindness are still something that can change. like anything, like a bad day, a bad connection, a bad conversation. I had to, even take accountability and apologize to somebody the other day because they felt I came off a certain way. That's where I have
You
learned.
apologized?
David, come on now.
I'm messing with you. Finish your thought. Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
No, I was just saying, it's just like intent versus impact. I'm just, there's a lot to learn, and I am learning from other people. I'm learning from you. I'm learning from those around me. I see people doing things and it inspires me to do things. And, people are always like, oh, well, how do you do it? You inspire me. And half of the times I'm looking at other people like, okay, I'm rooting,
Yeah.
go girl, woohoo. Like, and another thing is, don't look at someone and say, oh, why them? Why not me? Like, what, look at them and be like, okay, so she did that. All right, let me go ask her how she did that. Let me see if I could email her, hey, can I have 5 seconds of your time? You never know. Like, I've gained great connections just by like, hey, let me stop you. I have a quick question. And, my vibe and my aura took it from there. And it's connections I have for lifetime now.
Well, you're doing great. You're always on Facebook, Instagram. I see you literally almost every day, and I heart and like all of your stuff. So I know you're doing great. Where can people find you at? Like, what social media accounts do you want to give out? Where can they find you at?
You guys can follow me, of course, on Instagram. It is I am Flete _ Flete is, of course, my last name. And Twitter, it's the same handle. I am Flete _ and I'm on Facebook, Ashley Flete. So yeah, I just, I post every now and then and just try to share things that might uplift other people. And, I'm a vibe. That's all I can say.
You are a vibe. You are a vibe. And I thank you so much for joining episode 11 with me. Thank you so much, Ritual Motion, to sponsor this. I'm still like in awe at that this is happening. So thank you, Ritual Motion. You got my good friend to be on here. Like, this is like my partner in crime. So to have her on a sponsored podcast with me is awesome. Hopefully we'll have Miss Ashley Flete on here again when she has another 3 more businesses on her hands.